Hello and welcome to Dread Paints. Today I'm going to talk you through how I paint my Skaven Blade monks in a bright kind of 90s style, using mostly contrast paints with a few highlights. These aren't competition winning level, but it is a decent achievable standard for average painters like myself. So let's get started. So the first step is Apothecary White, and this will be applied to all the robes below the belt, and it's usually the first stage that I do on any Skaven that I'm going to paint. This is because the Apothecary White has to be applied in quite a liberal layer, so if you get any over the edges onto the brown fur when you've already got brown paint there, that white will show up as a strong white edge or grey edge and doesn't look very good. So better to get it out of the way and do that coat first. Next up, I use Gulliman Flesh, and this is obviously going to go on all the skin areas of the rat. I'm going to paint the claws a different colour later on, but it doesn't matter if we get a bit of paint on there. So I just paint the whole foot for now. Same with the hands and the face. And perhaps unusually, I don't paint the tail in this colour, but you'll see what we do with that in a little while. Next up then, Gore-Grunter Fur, and this is obviously going to go on all the fur areas, around below his mouth, up to around his eyes, in his ears, on his arms, and I think that's probably it for this particular model. As always, I'm trying to stay quite neat at this stage. I don't really want to be touching up any areas with white paint just yet. So yeah, neat as possible, and it'll save you time in the long run. Okay, next then we've got Cygor Brown, and this is going to go on all the nails, claws, teeth. Provide a nice dark base coat to layer up onto with some bone colours later on. Just going to run a little bit inside the mouth there as well, just to darken that down. Okay, Wildwood next. This is going to go on to the club that he's holding. Anything wood gets done in Wildwood for me. So the tail, Carroburg Crimson, is going to be the first coat on there. Shade paint rather than a contrast paint. I suppose you could use Volupus Pink instead, but I prefer this one because it's just not quite as intense. It just gives you a sort of a pink undertone. And then later on I'm going to go over this pink undertone with a flesh colour. It's just going to give it a slightly different shade to the rest of the skin. And rather than being bright pink and a bit too over the top, it's just a bit more subtle. Anyway, Black Templar next. So obviously this is going to be to blacken down anything that's going to be metallic later on, i.e. his sword, the handle for his sword as well. That's going to be gold, I think. And then we've got Snakebite Leather, and this is going to do his belts, belts, straps, bags. Okay, so now I've got out the white scar and I'm just going to touch in any of the boils and growths that this guy's got, so that when I paint them later, it's a nice bright undercoat for them to go over. Using contrast paints, you know, this is the case. You've really got to re-undercoat stuff white. You can't just go over the top of dark colours. So that's one of the downsides, but still a damn sight quicker than having to do it all with, you know, base and layer paints the traditional way. This is definitely preferred for me, much quicker. So the majority of the model is going to be done after this layer, and that's Plague Bearer Flesh. So all the rest of his robes will be this colour, suitably plaguey, disgusting colour for a plague monk. Now I don't use any undershading, especially not on rank and file troops, but what I do tend to do is go back, like with the robes for example, I'll go back and sort of reinforce any of the deepest crevices and just put like an extra layer of paint on there just to darken it down and yeah, reinforce it really, yeah. Next up we've got Xandri Dust, and this is going to go on all the nails and claws and teeth as well, not a base coat because we've already done the base coat, but as a first layer, I suppose, even though it's a base paint. I think I'm also going to do the, there's some like, well, I thought they were sort of nails or bones going through the club, and I think I'm going to do those sort of bone coloured and have them as like mini bones that he's put through there, rather than metallic sort of nails or something metal. Just touch on his teeth a little bit here, just to try and get a little bit of colour in there. I'll probably layer up with a lighter tone later on, just to make them pop. A quick check, see how we're doing. Yeah, it's looking good so far, at least to me. Reichland Flesh Shade. So this is what's going to go on the tail, just to give it that more sort of flesh tone as I spoke about earlier. Dull down that pink a little bit, but it's still going to look, you know, slightly different to the rest of the skin, which is what I wanted for the tails. Blood Angels Red. So I think I decided I didn't want to do the all of the bags brown on these guys, but it might be a bit boring. I'll add a little pop of colour, so I'll do all the bags red, and the pendants around the neck red, and the little sort of, I don't know what you call them, tokens that hang off the belts. Yeah, I think traditionally these would probably be metal, but we'll do them red. Why not? Volupus Pink. So this is for all the boils. Again, you know, this is purely just a choice of mine here. It doesn't have to be pink. You could do them green or yellow would still work. Red would work. But I think a pinkish tone is what I fancy. So that's what I'm going to go for. A heavy coat of Volupus Pink on there just to get some shade. Whilst we're waiting for that to dry, we're Screaming Skull next. I'm just going to touch in all the claws and nails now and the teeth. Give those a highlight. Make them really pop, stand out. And the great thing about contrast paints is you don't have to highlight anything if you don't want to. You know, you can sort of just leave them be, but there's certain bits on a model that I always like to take the time over, and that is things that sort of stand out to me on the models. And traditionally, I always remember seeing Skaven in magazines as a kid, and they all had red, like bright red claws, and I didn't want bright red claws on my Skaven. I wanted them to be a bit more realistic. Well, I'm not sure that's the right word, but I fancied a bone colour on mine. But I still wanted them to stand out. You know, I know that people instantly look at the claws and the teeth and the nails on Skaven because of the iconic red claws. So it's something I wanted to take a bit of extra time over, and rather than just using Skeleton Horde on all the nails and claws, I've taken the time to, you know, layer up and do it the traditional way just to make it look that little bit more finished. That's all the nails and claws and teeth done. So next up, we're going to move back to the boils. They're starting to pop now as well. White scar now, just dotting in the eyes. I didn't do that on camera because obviously trying to dot in eyes on camera is extremely difficult. So I've done that without you seeing it, but I'm sure I'll get a video of me doing that at some point so you can have a good laugh. A quick dry brush now on the sword, just with any silver is fine. I mean, these are rank and file troops, so you've got to remember, you know, there's a hefty amount of these to paint, at least for me. So if I was to spend the time doing, you know, NMM on all the weapons, and you know, it's just not viable. So a quick dry brush, and I think that looks acceptable to me. Retributor gold now for the sword handle. I'm sure there's a proper name for that. I don't know what it is. I think at this stage he's looking pretty good. So just about ready to call him done, I think. Bloodletter now is probably my favourite Citadel paint of all time. It's great for doing eyes, demon eyes. Yeah, I'm just going to blob a load of that into the hole, and it just sort of magically sorts all the eyes out for you. Great stuff. So just moving backwards and forwards between the two eyes. Quick coat here, quick coat there. 2 or 3 coats. And they're about done. So a quick check around him. He's looking good. I can't see any mistakes standing out at me. Nothing too obvious anyway. So back to Reichland Flesh Shade again now. And I'm going to go over the gold handle of the sword just to give it that sort of rosy tint. Next up, Trollslayer Orange. First of all, I'm going to use this to highlight all of the red parts, and here I am just picking out the medallion hanging from his ropes, and now I'm picking out the edges on his side bag. And finally, I'll just touch in the clasp on his hood. Next it's Black Templar. We're going to be back working on the eyes again now. Just going to dot in the pupils as carefully as I can. So for this I'm using an Insane Detail brush from the Army Painter. It's got about 4 strands of hair in it. The key to doing pupils here is to make sure it's touching one of the edges of the eye. And in this case I'm doing it towards the top of the eye and just off centre. That will help him look a little bit more normal and not too starey, looking forward like he's supposed to be. So that's this little fella about done, I think. I can't see anything else standing out that needs extra attention. But yeah, I think I'm going to call it there. So here is a full unit of them, complete with command. I really hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope to bring you more how to paint videos in the future. Please do like and subscribe to keep updated with the latest happenings at Dread Studios. Take care, and bye for now.
Don't wait another day, don't waste another minute. There is no better way, this is a new beginning. If there's another song that you should be singing,